If you enjoy this content, please take a moment to rate and review it. Your feedback will greatly impact our ability to reach more people. Thank you.
All right. How's it going?
It's going well. Entertaining social media day today.
Yes. Very thankful that they chose a Thursday to do this.
That's right.
So like this whole episode didn't go, down the garbage disposal.
Right. Because we didn't know the biggest social media thing.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't think there's anything to talk about other than to just like get right to it.
Yeah. The two biggest egos maybe in the world stopped their bromance and they're now fighting.
I mean, you still got Putin, Xi, and Kim Jong-un.
Okay. Maybe the U.S.
It's certainly in North America, those are the two. All right, man. Well, let's dig in.
Yeah.
So everybody knows by now, if you're listening to this on Saturday, I'm sure whatever we say now has evolved into many further steps, but at least we will capture our thoughts about it in the day that it has happened. So today, what had been building for about 2 weeks really sort of came to a head. Elon Musk and President Donald Trump are now in a very, very, very public fight. It is somewhat over the big, beautiful bill that Emily and I sort of went through in detail.
Yeah. I should have mentioned that. That was really helpful. I was out of town, but that was good.
Yeah, no, it was helpful for me too. It was self-serving. I was trying to kind of wrap my arms around it. And so obviously Emily's always great for digging into those things and standing up to good questions. But yeah, the big beautiful bill has become highly controversial, and for obvious reasons. I mean, it was controversial on its own. But this week, Elon Musk came out, and I think it was yesterday, said, I can't take it anymore. This bill is pork filled. It's abomination, used all sorts of words.
Right.
And that was sort of the starting point of it. I was catching a little bit of cable news last night, and they showed, Rep. Mike Johnson, Speaker Mike Johnson up there trying to, diffuse the situation, but it had boiled over already. And today, Thursday, it has fully exploded, imploded, whatever you want to say about it. Elon and Trump are full on fighting on their respective social media platforms, which was
they
always
both have significant reach on.
Yeah, this was always the thing that I was like waiting to happen was what happens when they start fighting on their different social network platforms. It really is amazing to see how the world has bifurcated into social platforms that an individual owns. We truly are in the era of Citizen Kane. This is what that movie was really about. But now it's like out in the open. The richest people control media businesses, and it's like they may let other opinions be seen on there, but not more than their own.
They control the algorithm. They control the reach of each person posting.
Yeah, so and X is far more powerful than truth. Just as a platform, we don't need to talk about whose brand is more powerful, whether Elon's brand is more powerful than Donald Trump's brand. I would say it's probably not, but it's up there, man. It's up there. It's very, very high on the list. And so Elon talking about starting another political party and these kinds of things. Look, the speed with which the technocrats and the Republicans came together, sort of as a enemy of my enemy is my friend partnership in order to win the election. Everybody was wondering how long this would last, and not long is the answer.
Right,
not long.
right.
It didn't even last a full year, because I don't think this year, last year this time, they had fully locked in.
Yeah, I think that's right.
I don't think they had fully locked in, from a partnership perspective. And so I don't think it lasted a year. And, where we go from here is very uncertain. All the markets are down. Crypto is down. It's an uncertain path forward. I do think that this will create a tremendous amount of challenge for the bill. I do think so, because many of the people who were elected because of the tech bros, not kind of pure old school GOP. And so I think we're about to get a good sense of what the breakdown is between MAGA, old school GOP, and then, the tech bros who glommed on to the Republican Party, but now who knows? They've always had libertarian, tendencies. So for them to break off and say, let's disrupt something, that's like core to their ethos. They're not traditionalists. They're not institutionalists. So this is totally from the playbook for them. So I don't know. I just set the table. What do you got to say about that?
I agree. I think it's sad, but it was sad before today. It's just sort of we have pulled up I guess you call it a tweet, a post by Donald Trump about the easiest way to save money is to end Elon's government subsidies. And then 6 minutes later, he comes back with SpaceX will begin decommission its Dragon spacecraft, which just went to recover several astronauts that were in the International Space Station. So it's sad to me in the sense that these are, the president of the United States and the wealthiest man in the United States, maybe in the world. And it's just a really bad role model for our citizenry, for the society.
It always was.
It always was. Yeah.
It always was.
Yeah, it was before today, and now it's just sort of becoming much worse. And this is the nicest of the back and forth fights. There's a lot more ugly things that are going on right now, and I'm sure it's going to get worse.
Yeah, we selected this link for the show screenshot and for our show notes because it's the business. It's not the mudslinging.
It's indicative of how they're fighting, but it's not all the really ugly mudslinging.
Yeah. Everyone who's listening to this will know, because what news is going to travel faster than this? That Elon has accused Donald Trump of being in the Epstein files, which I don't think is something that most people thought wasn't true. There's plenty of pictures of
no one's going to be shocked about that.
That's not like a surprising thing. But, it's just the idea that we're going to this level of mudslinging. And I think the reality is that they both probably have a fair amount of dirt on each other. I mean, that's, you get pretty close. They were spending a lot of time together. It's just not that surprising, right? But the fissure and who goes where, a lot of people on X have been having a lot of fun talking about David Sachs, right? And kind of how this plays out for him. I mean, this is Elon's co-founder and PayPal, that both guys are from South Africa, like literally, they're kind of best friends.
Right.
And then, Sachs is in the White House.
Right.
He's in the cabinet. I mean, where does he go? How does this play out for him? So there's a lot of fallout that could happen if these guys can't find a way to work back to at least a place where they're not dunking on each other. Like I question whether or not, especially, and for me, this is less of an Elon thing because his track record on this stuff is less known. Trump's track record on this stuff is actually pretty known. Once you kind of cross him,
it's not a lot of people that have come back.
No. And it's not that he can be cool with business and taking shots and things like that. He doesn't generally appear to take these things very personally, but he doesn't forget. And nobody should forget, right? And this was for the president of the United States, and I would consider his role to be more important than Elon's, right? For the president of the United States, this was a significant betrayal, right? And so once someone does this to you, how can you let that person in without having all sorts of eyes and guardrails in place and things of that nature, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like it to be over as soon as possible. I mean, I don't care about their bromance falling apart. I'd like the president to run the damn country. And I think David Sachs is doing a good enough job in his AI, crypto, czar, whatever that is. I don't think it will be helpful to change out that role, but I have no knowledge of what Trump's going to do. I mean, I'd like him to stop posting ridiculous things and go back to actually trying to figure out the budget, figure out our international policy, figure out trade deals. But I'm not sure that's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you just said makes an interesting point, right? Which is, okay, so Elon decided today's the day I'm going to dunk on Donald Trump, right? Mm-hmm. So he sort of decided that today. The interesting thing is because of the nature of how, not just Donald Trump, but even like the White House socials, you know, I mean, I feel like they've been very influenced by each other. You know, everyone has sort of like spun everybody up into this highly disrespectful posture.
Yes.
Where it's the default. The default is to be highly disrespectful. You know what I mean? And call it
formality and the respect for the White House tradition went out the window in a long time. Not a long time ago, a couple months ago.
Yes, exactly. You know, a few months ago. And so it's a lot of fair turnabout, right? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You know, with President Trump, because of that, there's no you can't say people are throwing pot shots because this is kind of how he operates.
Yeah, that's right.
He's setting the model. He's establishing how we should all behave, right? I mean, that's what he's doing. So yeah, I mean, look, I don't think there's much more to say about that. I don't want to belabor the point. We've been talking about it for about 10 minutes, but it's hard to start the show with anything else given the importance.
It's the biggest story of the day by far.
And until it's resolved, it will be the biggest story, right? I mean, until there is resolution to this, and we'll see, will there be a resolution, right? I mean, you know, I tell you what, it's going to be a massive distraction.
Yeah.
It's going to be a massive, massive distraction. And also, it's not the, and I'm using these two words as a euphemism. I don't mean them in the literal sense, but this is not the civil war that people were projecting. People were talking about the widening rift between genders or the widening rift between the left and the right or, you know, all these types of things. What we did not fully anticipate was sort of an implosion of the Republican Party at this level. Everyone knew there was going to be a falling out, but now that it's here, it's on our doorstep. We're now living it live. It's not theoretical. You do realize that the scale of those differences and how actually the tech bros are in their own way a form of the elites, you know?
Yeah.
And MAGA truly are the true populace, right? And so you can now see this, wow, you know, what happens when they couldn't get along long enough to beat the Democrats, right? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like they won the election, but that was really the battle. It was what they were able to do once they won that battle that was the war. And if they implode and have a war amongst themselves and lose this window, and then, you know, look, we are 16 months away from the midterms.
Yeah, well, I mean that's true, and that's a thing. But,
and I never gave the Democrats any credit for being able to come back in the midterms on their own steam. But this is different. This is different.
Yeah, but there's a nearer term thing that I'm concerned about, which is Scott Bessent has said the Treasury will run out of money and need to raise the debt ceiling.
Yes.
Sometime in July.
Yes.
And there's a chance that the big, beautiful bill, you know, which has not passed the Senate yet, and then will need to be reconciled. I don't think there's any chance the Senate will pass the exact same bill, will need to be reconciled. If Elon and his group of followers get their way, and I'm in favor of cutting the deficit, they get their way too much, you may not be able to pass a House bill. So the Senate could make significant changes due to lobbying or whatever. And then the House there's not a lot of votes there.
Yeah.
And so we would not get the continuation of the 2017 tax cuts, which would feel a lot like a tax increase. And then we would be under this very fraught political environment where the Republicans are fighting each other and the Democrats are not going to come to save them, where we have to extend the debt ceiling and it's not clear anyone has the votes to do so. That's a really bad set of things.
Yeah.
And I'd like to think that people could be adults and get their act together, but I'm nervous about that.
Well, it does feel like there's a little bit of the calculus in this, right, is to make people nervous about that.
Yeah.
It feels like it to me.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe.
That's a little bit of what's going on. And I'm glad that you brought that up, right? So it's June 4th as we're recording this today.
Yes.
It'll ship to the market on June 6th. When in July?
It's not clear. It's around the 15th, but I think there are a few extensions they can pull off to get another 30 days, another 15 days.
I was going to say, so let's call it 60 days.
Yeah.
Let's say we have 60 days, right? So as investors, right? And of course, we're not traders, right? We're long-term investors. But maybe that's even more important. As long-term investors, how important is it for us to kind of put our heads down, do work, and not get too swept up into what's happening for 30 days and just kind of let the theater play out and check back in 30 days?
It won't affect venture markets. I mean, my view is that there's very little, approaching zero chance that by September 30th, this isn't fixed. So from our point of view, in venture markets, the U.S. government is going to finance itself and its theater. But in stock markets and bond markets, I think there will be a lot of volatility.
Yeah, volatility.
The VIX spoke up today.
Yeah. It's not quite at 20, but it's...
And I think there's going to be a lot of wringing of hands and worry.
Yeah.
I think it will not affect our assets. But when when the president and the richest guy in the world can't get their act together and are yelling at each other like 4-year-olds, it makes the bond market nervous.
The interesting thing, the interesting thing is that these two guys do have tremendous egos, and
following. I mean,
yeah.
People, for both of them.
For both of them.
People will
for both of them
vote based on what either one of them says, and they will call their political leaders. And I think they both have a track record of being able to get out the vote and influence people.
It's another thing. Gosh, I feel like we're taking so much time to talk about this, but another thing that is interesting is, I haven't seen Elon talk about it directly. I'm seeing a bunch of posts talking about Elon calling for Trump's impeachment. Where can more damage be done more quickly, right? Can more damage be done to Tesla and SpaceX, before it can be done to the chance of this bill happening to sort of force Elon's capitulation? Like, I think that's another interesting game theory thing to sort of play out is like how much damage can be done because look, even though the international trade courts, come back and said the tariffs are not, not quite legal or whatever, there's a lot of things that this administration is doing that are very unprecedented, very, very quickly, very, very aggressively when they feel, they need to from the perspective of negotiation. And it's not, this post we have up here, where Donald Trump says the easiest way to save money in our budget, billions and billions of dollars, is to terminate Elon's government subsidies and contracts. I was surprised that Biden didn't do it, right? How long will it take to make such an impact to the Tesla stock that Elon's shareholders, et cetera, kind of say, okay, you just push the red button and you're actually not strong enough to overcome this, right? At the end of the day, you're a businessman. Like you don't have any. You can leak information, you can leverage your X platform, but like your true ability to wield power, you can say, okay, I'm going to turn off Starlink. Like there's things you can do, but they ultimately destroy the value of your enterprise, right? And it's like, how deep can he go down his, and look, is he on K, right? You know what I mean? Like, is he currently actively on drugs? And is that impairing his ability to sort of properly weigh out? He's already in a different universe from all of us. He's so rich. He doesn't, his sense of risk and loss are so beyond anything we can understand. And so, is he unable to properly calculate the game theory to really understand that his moves are limited compared to those of the president of the United States?
I don't know. I mean, my guess, which is all it is. I mean, I've never met either one of these people.
Yes, no, we're just hypothesizing.
My guess
right?
is that. I mean, I think Elon has done a variety of drugs for decades. I would not be surprised if he still does them now, but I don't think that is changing his perspective. It could be wrong.
Oh, come on! If he's on drugs, that's not changing his perspective.
I mean, I think he's.
You wouldn't say that about anybody else. I mean, that's like no.
I mean, okay. I think he has been behaving a certain way for a long time. And I don't know that I see a lot of change from the past, but I don't know him well. And what I was going to say is I think what's scary is both these guys don't seem like they are likely to back down.
No, they don't.
And I think Elon has the governance control in X and Tesla and SpaceX it's his decision. I don't think that the board or the investors, maybe debt holders in Tesla, but it would be a while. I don't think there's going to be a capitulation moment where he has to do something because someone has power over him. And Trump is...
What if there's a Tesla sell-off, though?
I'm sure there's going to be... Tesla's way down. Compared to where it was.
It dropped $47 today. Opened at $322. Closed at $284.
I have no actual data, but my belief is that he's not going to react to that.
Let's move to all the other stories that have nothing to do with this.
Yes.
We just spent 20 minutes talking about it, but I think you have to. I mean, it's the biggest story of the year. That's not everything Donald Trump did in his first 100 days.
Right.
It's like,
I think that's right.
All right. We're going to try to run through these, right? So let's start. We're on Bloomberg. The U.S. economic activity Ebbs price rises in the Fed's Beige book. Vic, what is the Beige book?
The Beige book is the qualitative, grouping of all of the feedback the 9 different Fed banks get from their customers in the different regions. It's qualitative, so it's stories and quotes and how people are feeling.
Right.
And it was negative. People are not feeling good.
Yeah.
They're feeling, that was yesterday. They're feeling worse today.
Yeah, for sure.
And prices are on the rise, and it was bad all around.
Yep.
It's hard. It's not quantitative, so it's hard to say how much, but it wasn't good.
Yeah. So and I think looking through the article, we couldn't fully tell whether or not this is a quarterly thing, a monthly thing, but it seems that the data they were pulling was ending through mid to late May. It's pretty recent in terms of that negative sentiment. So from today, Wall Street Journal, bond yields fall after weak data spurs hopes of a rate cut.
Yeah. So
sorry, this is from yesterday.
The ISM is another sort of qualitative. They put it into a 0 to 100 with like over 50 is growth and expansion, under 50 is declines, but it's still a polling thing. Mm-hmm. And it went down to 49, which is, recessionary signal. And then the ADP job report came out very negative. I've stopped really paying that much attention because it doesn't seem like it's that useful anymore. And so the bond market took both those things to suggest the economy is, not growing anymore, and the Fed might cut, and yields came down pretty dramatically in one day.
Yep.
I'm not sure that this is that definitive, but we had the Beige book and these indicators all come out at the same time.
Yep. So I thought this was a really interesting story that you found in the Wall Street Journal. Economists raise questions about the quality of U.S. inflation data. So all models are based on certain inputs, and they weigh those inputs, and they use them to sort of come out with some type of index score. That is what CPI is, right? It's an index, and it's made up of it's the sum of many parts. And
it's supposed to reflect the prices of what people buy in the economy.
To the consumer.
Yeah.
Right. But what's interesting is that if any of those different key data points that make up the index gets a little wonky, then you have to sort of fill it in with, I guess, what we would sort of call simulated data, right? You have to start estimating. We had a huge jump over the course of the last 2 quarters of estimation in the methodology of CPI. I think you said because there's been a hiring freeze, and that has changed the validity of our data.
Yeah, that's right. So for the last 5 years, just to back up, what BLS, Bureau of Labor Statistics, does is they try to actually walk into stores, restaurants, facilities, or they call the manager and they try to get the actual price for a particular good. And they have humans that are literally doing that. And there's been a hiring freeze since January. And it's not clear to me how that one leads to the next. But for the last 5 years, they have, they can't find every price point that goes into the CPI. So on average, it's between 5 and 10% of the prices in any 1 month they can't find. And yes, they impute the value, which means they do the best they can to estimate it. And this month, it was approaching 30%. It got to like almost 27, 28%. They couldn't, within the time frame, get the actual prices, and they had to impute the data. Economists saw that and were asking why, and the BLS pointed to the hiring freeze. I mean, I think the real truth is, why are we still calling around asking what the price of butter is?
Yeah.
Can't we get a data feed from the 5 biggest grocers in the country and have it be automated? I mean, we don't do stock prices like that. We don't do anything like that. The government is way behind. I'm sorry they have a hiring freeze, but it's ridiculous that we're not going to be able to rely on the CPI with as much certainty as before.
Yeah, to me, this is like classic Clayton Christensen value network stuff, right? It's like we didn't quite understand that the key to these models working was to have the humans employed by the government.
Yeah.
Right. And I just want to read this paragraph because I think it just sort of shows how the dominoes fall, right?
Yeah.
So CPI is critical for determining inflation.
Yeah.
Right. So this is in quotes, right? The inflation rate determines how much Social Security benefits go up each year and where federal tax brackets are set. Private sector contracts such as wage agreements between companies and unions routinely reference the inflation rate. Payments on $2 trillion of inflation-protected federal bonds hinge on the inflation rate, as do yields on standard treasury bonds. Businesses, investors, and policymakers rely on the rating to guide their decisions. The Federal Reserve is laser-focused on inflation data when it sets interest rates for the country. We know all of those things are true, right? End quote. We know all those things are true. And then you look over at this chart in this article, the alternative estimation methodology in CPI has doubled from its previous high like hit previous high over the course of the last 8 years. So it is very rickety right now.
Yes.
Right. This core data point is now wildly less accurate. It's like the fulcrum for all these other decisions that we make. And it's so inaccurate today because of a hiring freeze in the government. Did anyone think about that?
No, I don't think anyone thought about that. And these are prices. I mean, you could contact Kroger and Whole Foods and Publix and get them to send you a data feed. I mean, the way we did this in 1950 does not need to be the way we do it going forward. And so I'm sorry they have a hiring freeze, but the bigger problem is it should be automated. I mean, there's no reason that we have to have humans calling their local store and asking what a pound of butter costs. Or even worse, walking in. But apparently that's what they do.
The average age of a U.S. Senator is 64. So I think that has something to do with it.
That's right.
I think that has something to do with it. Okay, into the VC rundown. Clara Home Care raises $3.1 million in seed funding. This is a San Francisco-based company that is helping families to find professional in-home care, senior caregivers. The round was led by Torch Capital, Virtue, and Y Combinator with a bunch of angel investors. We've seen a bunch of these businesses. We've looked at a bunch of these businesses. It's very hard to scale these businesses. I think we've been talking about the importance of it. You know, you've heard me talk ad nauseum about my dad's situation and the importance of the home caregivers to sort of the quality of life that we as a family are able to experience. It's not just my parents, it's also me.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Because
right.
I don't have to do it. So this is incredibly important, and it is really difficult to get great caregivers. You know, I feel really lucky for the team that I've got, but it's really hard. And still, I can't fully explain why, but this is a hard business to scale. So I think this is great, but also I sort of look at the investors here and I wonder how much experience they have with just knowing the difficulties of scaling this type of business.
Yeah, that's right. It's a really hard space. I have lost money, I think 4 times in this space. I have another asset right now.
Another shot on goal in this
space. Another shot on goal with great entrepreneurs, 2 brothers that you know.
Oh yeah.
And it's really hard.
I'd bet on them, but it's hard.
I bet on them, even though I said to them, like, you know, I've already lost in this space, but I love you guys, so let's figure it out.
Right.
But it's hard.
Yeah. No. It's really hard. It's from Healthcare Innovation Group. Texas Health Resources among investors in ArcheHealth. It's an AI-based platform that provides hospitals with detailed insights into the actual costs of delivering patient-level care. Cost accounting, very, very, very hard and very, very, very important to come up with pricing, to come up with running your P&Ls, to be able to predict, you know, what your yearly budgets are going to be. This is very, very important and very, very hard for hospitals to execute. So makes sense that this would be something that somebody would invest in. And it's just a $6.7 million seed round funded by LRV Health, Martin Ventures, Texas Health Resources, you know. So I think this is a good bet to make because it is a hard space, and I think forward-thinking CFOs are looking for help in this space.
Yeah, no question. This is an incredibly big opportunity if they can figure it out.
If they can figure it out. Yeah, if they can get it right. So good luck to ArcheHealth. This is Axios Pro. Reserv nabs $25 million to fix insurance claims tech. So this is a Series B. It's a Series B deal. Flourish Ventures led the round, joined by BCV, Altai Ventures, 8VC, Convex, and Accenture. They've now raised $55 million. They were founded in 2022. And they're basically a tech-enabled TPA. So not necessarily selling to other TPAs, but they are going to market to compete with other TPAs.
Yeah. And I mean, the TPA space needs to be upgraded. It is not very tech-enabled. And so a tech-forward, AI kind of centric TPA is pretty interesting. I think it's a good place to enter the space. We'll see how it does. But
yeah, I mean, we've got a platform that sells into this space and has great success because these TPAs do need a lot of help with their technology. So it makes sense to put a shot on goal to compete with the other ones in the space. I think that makes a lot of sense. All right. Outcomes for Me raises $21 million in funding. This is a Boston-based company. They have a direct-to-patient AI-driven platform. The round was led by Salica Investments. LabCorp is in the deal. Forecast Labs is in the deal. Sierra Ventures, good group of folks around the table. It looks like for a broad range of cancer types and geographies. They are trying to support patients with all the navigation, leveraging their genomics, helping them find what interventions they may take on personally, but also finding the right next, provider to support them.
Yeah, I think we're going to see more and more of these direct to patient in a particular disease state where there's a lot of navigation, a lot of complexity, and then there is a lot of change. And so oncology is a great one. I think there's going to be several of these. Agree.
All right. Prepared raises $80 million to expand AI-powered emergency response platform. I like this space theoretically. I don't know enough about it to make my own bets in the space, but my experiences with 911 are. It's obviously goes without saying. It's a critical service and. It's a very, very hard service. It's an often understaffed service. It's not quite air traffic control, but it does carry that same level of stress. And so the more technology that we can provide to help on both ends of the emergency line process, the better. $80 million in new funding tells me they have an extensive list of existing clients, and there's either some scale stuff or there's some serious build out in technology. But General Catalyst led the round, and Andreessen Horowitz in the first round are in on the deal. So this should be one to watch.
Yeah, that's right. And I don't know enough about it, but they had this concept they were talking about in the press release that for the critical life threatening calls, they triage it to more of an automated tool so that the human operators can work with the really critical ones. That's a huge problem in 911 call center. So if they can figure that out, that would be great.
Yeah. And look, the volume of 911 calls is something I know from just what's going on here in Nashville is going up, right? It's an increasingly used service, for many, many things. And so, yes, we need.
Yeah, not all of them. I don't know what the percentage is. Maybe you do. Are actually like a life-threatening emergency. Some of them are urgent, but not life-threatening. They can be triaged.
Yeah, one of the really interesting things, just anecdotally about these different systems, not the technology systems, but the actual emergency systems in different municipalities, is they don't all live in the same place. Some of them live under the police, some of them live under the fire department, some of them are independent of both of them, and so I would imagine one of the key features is meeting these departments where they are, and then making sure that they can properly support interfacing with the various departments that they have to hand off information, critical information to, depending on whether or not they're embedded in one of those services or they're outside and they have to sort of integrate through phone lines and APIs and things of that nature. So seems like a pretty sticky business once you sort of get into it and they're dependent on you. Yeah. You probably have low to no churn, right? So that's probably why all those big name VCs are in the deal.
Yeah.
All right, and probably the last story here, which is not quite a VC deal, but Omada Health. I know they are crossing their fingers that Elon and Trump figure this stuff out before their IPO goes live. Is it tomorrow?
Tomorrow, yeah.
Boy, man. Yeah. Hinge had better timing than they did.
Yeah.
But they are
It's hard to predict when.
It's hard to predict. It's hard to predict. They are aiming to raise $158 million in their IPO, targeting a valuation of $1.1 billion.
Yeah, I'm excited to have them get out. Hopefully, people will look through the chaos. I mean, Omada is a good company that should get out. Hopefully they will.
All right. Moving on to policy. So healthcare dive, nearly 11 million would become uninsured under the GOP reconciliation bill. So says the CBO.
Yeah. So the CBO scores all the bills, and part of that scoring process is they discuss people that would lose healthcare coverage. And they scored the health side of the bill at 10.8 million over 10 years would lose coverage. CBO is supposed to be nonpartisan, but then this article identified another nonpartisan scorekeeper that had a lower number, 7.8. So either way, it's going to be a significant number of people as you add in the work requirements, which of course require work, but also if you're an undocumented immigrant, even if you are working, you can't show that you're working.
Yeah.
And then there's several ways that they're sort of just checking more often. So as Emily said last week, some of these people have coverage in other places, but not everyone does.
Sure.
So somewhere between 7 and 11 million will lose coverage. And that is going to be negative for health systems and payers, certainly, and the people that don't have coverage in some other place.
Yeah. So, I mean, what to say, right? I mean, it's the CBO. I will give it to Emily. I think she made the point that the CBO is often wrong on these things. Mm-hmm. In this article, there's a nonpartisan budget scorekeeper that said that 7.8 million would lose the cuts instead of 11 million. I think it's pretty clear there will be a loss of coverage,
yes.
Right? So that much we can say. It will probably be in the millions, right?
Definitely. I mean, definitely over 5 million.
Yeah. It will be in the millions, okay? And so then it goes to what next, right? What happens next? What fallout happens as a result of that? What other mechanisms are there to provide care for those people? One of the things I asked Emily, and she had to sort of admit there's a possibility of that. How much more, uncompensated care does that create, especially for your nonprofit hospitals? How many more ER visits does that create?
A lot.
Right. So
the undocumented population, that's where they're going to go.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, of course. So there's all sorts of downstream fallout issues that are not just losses to the rolls, right, for covered entities, but down to like changes in behavior, changes in sort of paths into the healthcare system for people, and not being reimbursed, but also having to provide care, right? For especially for health systems where they've got that mission in the community, the nonprofits in particular.
Yeah, they don't have a lot of margin to cover that.
No. I mean, I think about a Vanderbilt, right? Where yes, they're an academic research center, but they are also like kind of Nashville's ER. You know what I mean? Like that's the ER that most people kind of crash into,
Right.
And they are already dealing with significant cuts, from the loss of $250 million from the government. And now on top of that, they may have, an increase in uncompensated care, right? So.
Yeah.
All right. And then you put this story in here about Apple and the App Store, and I didn't quite get it at first, but you talked me through it, and now I absolutely understand why we're going to cover it. So this is from Reuters. Apple loses bid to pause App Store reform order in Epic Games case. For those who don't know the longstanding issue here, it really stems from the fact that Apple has a 30% tax on all transactions that happen inside of the App Store. If you are inside of an app that was that is on an Apple device, because you can't really get an app on the Apple device that doesn't go through the App Store. So they take 30% of all of those in-app transactions. People have been trying to go outside of the app in order to avoid that 30% haircut, that 30% tax. And then Apple put a 27% tax on all the out-of-app transactions. And Epic, who has been fighting Apple on this and other matters for quite some time, has took them to court, and Apple lost in appeals court on this.
Yeah, they lost the regular court, then they appealed. They now lost the appeal yesterday. And so they are not allowed to charge if Fortnite or anyone else, one of our startups or another healthcare company, can get the user to go to their website and to complete their transaction and not use the App Store where their credit card is stored, they don't have to pay a fee. And so there's going to be a lot of attention at trying to encourage people to go. Maybe you have like a bundle, like Fortnite, you have a bundle where you offer a whole bunch of things, but it's only available on the website or whatever it is. So I think it's going to be it's going to be negative for Apple, but very positive for our portfolio and really any startup, even a big company like Epic Games and Fortnite. It's a lot of money that they're paying to Apple.
I'm an Apple customer. I love the Apple ecosystem as a customer. I've been using Apple devices for almost 25 years, kind of primarily. It is hard to be on Apple's side on this one. It's hard to be on their side on this one. And, it also is one of those things where I wonder, if they had moved to a 5% fee,
right?
You know what I mean? Like they probably
would have been fine.
Probably would have been fine.
Yeah.
But 27% and it's not even happening in app.
Right.
It's like
they were just trying to give the middle finger to the court, and it did not make sense.
Yeah. And so this is one of those deals where I feel they deserve to lose. The good guys won on this one. And yes, you're right. This will allow so much more innovation to happen on Apple devices. I mean, really, instead of just saying, well, screw it, I'm going to go Android first, this will actually allow more innovation to go on the Apple ecosystem, because 27% haircut, I mean, that's like tariff level stuff that we're talking about, right? I mean, that's a terrible loss of top line revenue.
And I mean, Apple won't get all the money because there'll be some percentage that go off the platform, but it's pretty convenient just to have the credit card in place. You're in the app already. You just buy it right there.
That's right.
They're going to keep a decent percentage in the ecosystem.
Totally. If
Fortnite or others can get someone to go on the outside because they don't really value the Apple ecosystem because they're playing Fortnite and that's what they want to do, then they shouldn't get that transaction.
Basically, I feel like you couldn't convince me that this was something that they should have done. And you also can't convince me it's something that they needed to do. I can't imagine, a company with this kind of cash position, the low churn they have on their consumer base. They needed to be this punitive to the developer base. They didn't need to do this.
Right.
So this feels self-inflicted and like brand destruction, and you lost.
Yeah, right.
Why'd you do it? All right, going into the industry, starting with payers, 2 back-to-back stories on UnitedHealth that are not too detailed, but more just like tracking the how UnitedHealth is now starting to
to figure out their story or come back and tell their story.
Yes. So both of these are fierce healthcare stories. The first is that they posted a shareholder FAQ that offers greater detail on the C-suite strategy. So it took the new CEO sometime, Stephen Helmsley, who was the chairman and now is the CEO and chairman, I believe, some time to kind of get in there, wrap his arms around everything, and kind of figure out, okay, what's what, how do we communicate, what we're going to do from this point forward. And so we have sort of the beginning of that, which is this FAQ. It's not worth talking in detail about the FAQ. I think what's more meaningful is that, Helmsley is getting his arms around it and now starting to communicate to the public. It does talk about in this article his compensation package, which to me seems pretty reasonable. $1 million annual salary, $60 million in equity awards, which I think is meaningful because when you look at the stock price drop, he's incented in the right way, right? You know what I mean? He's incented to grow the value of the company and not take a whole bunch of salary right now. And I think that should be a good sign for shareholders, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's right. There wasn't a lot of exciting newness in the FAQ, but his comp package is, I think, very fair, and hopefully they'll start now cleaning up what they have to clean up. Yeah,
and they're sort of taking a position, at least from the anecdotes in the article, that they welcome, auditing the Medicare Advantage plan, and basically just saying they have no problem being compliant, right? So all things that seem like what you would expect from UHG. But then they did file a defamation suit against The Guardian, saying that The Guardian basically published a bunch of things that were not true, and they sort of focused in on linking things to former CEO Brian Thompson.
Yeah, we covered this Guardian story maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. And that's right. They've filed a defamation suit, and The Guardian is not backing down. They're standing by their, I think, 20 sources for the story. So it'll be interesting to see if United really wants to fight through this, because I think it's going to end up being, they might win, but they're going to also in the process get a lot of other attention on things. So, but they're now at least communicating with Wall Street and doing things.
Yeah, I mean, the calculus on this to me is it's not something they typically do. People have all sorts of things to say about UHG all the time. So it feels to me that they must feel they have some ace card on this one. You know what I mean? Because they're just not. I haven't known them for filing defamation suits. In the past. So it'll be. I think it's gonna be interesting on both sides. Right? I think it's gonna be. I don't think the Guardian. Like, what were they gonna say? I mean, the suit was filed, right? So I mean, it wasn't like what we're gonna admit to it. You know what I mean? I think they had to say that they have sources and that they're, gonna stand up for themselves. But it will be interesting to sort of see, because we talked like from the beginning about the Wall Street Journal article, and we were like, ooh, where's the sourcing on this? Because these are really strong claims, and
we'll see what happens with that.
That may be coming. They have not filed a defamation suit against the Journal yet, right? So I think that's interesting, something to watch. All right, moving into the provider sector, Ascension nears a $3.9 billion AmSurge acquisition. This is from Bloomberg, but Fierce Healthcare is doing a rundown on it. And look, I think this is a really smart deal. Great for AmSurge to sort of, be with a, generally, really strong, at least historic company. Ascension's been dealing with challenges kind of since the pandemic, but I think generally speaking, they're cleaning up their portfolio and digging out of the perennial operating losses that they've been dealing with. But AmSurge, as we talked about before hitting record, this puts them in a category alongside HCA and Tenet, in terms of having like a proper ambulatory surgical,
scaled ambulatory surgical business.
Scaled, yes, exactly.
Yeah, and as the policy changes come out, I think there may be advantages to having that.
Very much so. Right. Very much so. Having that optionality, right? So they've been sort of, offloading a variety of different hospitals in different markets. One that I know a little bit more about is 8 hospitals, I believe, to Henry Ford Health. Some in a JV, some in a pure transition. So yeah, this is a big deal. So if they get this one done, I think we're going to need to watch Ascension, because I think in a lot of ways that probably shores up a lot of their vulnerabilities as a scaled nonprofit.
Yes, great.
Becker's Hospital Review did one of their kind of summaries of labor, and they found that 38 hospitals and health systems are cutting jobs. So this page was created on January 22nd, but it was updated at the end of May. And it's starting to kind of give us a sense that this is going to be a consistent wave that we're going to experience. More and more and more health systems cutting jobs. And what made me say, yes, let's cover it, is because the 6th thing on the list here is Vanderbilt. Right. And the job cuts come amid their $250 million cost reduction plan because of the loss of federal funding. Right. And so in here, you've got a myriad of different types of systems. You've got university systems, you've got nonprofits, you've got some smaller, sort of safety net style systems. But across all of them, they are laying off folks. Right. And this sort of shows there's just continued pressure in the health system segment.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, no one story is that surprising, but 38 over 5 months, there's a pretty good drumbeat of hospital systems laying off workers.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of administrative roles where you're getting a good bang for the buck in terms of salaries. Right. So it's not a lot of clinicians or nurses. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's those white collar jobs that are highly salaried. A lot of layoffs happening in that space. Yes. Healthcare Dive. Amazon Pharmacy's pill pack expands to Medicare patients.
Yeah. So I think this is great. It is now being sort of expanded where Medicare, they have supported Medicaid patients for a couple of years, and now they're opening up to Medicare. PillPack does a good job sort of segmenting the pills and making it easy for consumers. And then they also, it's kind of interesting, they allow you to tell your provider can you connect with Amazon directly? Because a lot of older folks in Medicare would rather just have the provider figure it out. So I think it's a smart play, and a lot of seniors will probably want to use it.
Yep. Makes total sense to me. Also in Healthcare Dive, Epic charts growth in provider TEFCA adoption. I had never heard of TEFCA before, but I understood what it was in place to serve. So TEFCA stands for the Trusted Exchange Framework and Common Agreement. It's a interoperability model, and Epic is rolling it out pretty aggressively. 41% of Epic's customers are currently live with this interoperability framework in place.
Yeah, and this is a big story to me because Epic had a second partner before TEFCA was created that they were still kind of dancing with and using, and then now they have decided they're moving everything to this. So it'll consolidate everything into this one platform, which will just be good overall. I mean, having data portability is good almost, I think, for everybody probably.
Yeah. A note sort of at the bottom is that Oracle is also looking to earn this designation with the Qualified Health Information Networks. And so this looks like it's going to be a pretty sweeping standard across all the big EHRs. And hopefully that starts to, lower the narrative around EHRs being data blockers, and that information being accessible for innovation to thrive on top of it instead of it being, these walled gardens of information.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, of course, because it's the government, a lot of acronyms, but you become a Quinn when you are fully into the TEFCA. So it's all one big data sharing thing.
Awesome. All right, moving to pharma. We only have one story for pharma, but Novartis, they have a cancer treatment called Pluvicto, and it shows positive results in trial.
Yeah, so this is good. It's a prostate cancer treatment for a particular type of prostate cancer that has not had great treatments before. So positive, exciting.
Great. And the first good story I've seen for Novartis in a while. Which I haven't seen many stories for Novartis at all.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
right.
So a cancer drug I think is obviously in the category of things that pharma companies want to see positive results in trials for.
Yes.
Okay. Health and Us, Wall Street Journal. Facing a cancer diagnosis, exercise and diet could make a difference. Going back to basics might help some patients live longer or respond to therapy, data shows. I want to just scroll down to this one paragraph here. A structured exercise program with a trainer helped colorectal cancer patients lower their risk of death and cancer recurrence after treatment, according to a study released Sunday at the American Society of Clinical Oncology's annual conference in Chicago and published in the New England Journal of Medicine. The study spanned more than a decade and is the first to answer conclusively in a controlled trial whether physical activity can improve cancer-related survival, the study's authors said. Patients in the program had a 37% lower risk of death after 8 years compared with patients who only received educational information on exercise. Exercise is medicine. That was me.
Yes. Exercise is medicine, and educating patients is not sufficient.
No.
Structured program means they had a trainer or they had to go to a facility, and there was an organization that made sure that they did the exercise. It's not enough to just tell your patients to exercise, and 37% is a really dramatic lowering of risk.
Yep.
And so it's clearly it has a great effect to get in a structured program.
Exercise is medicine.
Yes, but you have to do it.
Yes. Yes. And that's why I have a trainer. I don't trust myself to do it.
Yeah.
I will be more obligated to show up for my trainer than I will for myself.
Yeah.
So it sucks. I don't want to pay for it, but folks.
Yeah, I'm the same way. And my Pilates instructor and yoga and trainer, I have all of those. They charge me. Like if I just sleep late and don't go, they charge. I can change it if I give them 24 hours notice, but I just tired from the day and don't go, I still get charged, which is a good incentive. Like
that's right.
I'm never happy, but I end up going because I don't want to get charged.
Exactly. All right. Into the AI rundown. Fierce Biotech, FDA clears first AI tool for breast cancer risk prediction from startup Clairity, Clairity. This is exciting. This is really, really exciting. And listen to this podcast. We are going to be releasing an episode very soon. I think maybe the episode right after this.
Yeah.
We brought back Dr. Tarun Kapoor, who we always have on to talk about AI. And so, if you're interested in AI and the clinical setting, you won't want to miss that episode.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about the FDA and the importance of them clearing.
Issue.
Yes, we talk about this issue. So definitely want to, put a note in for you to listen to that episode. But this is amazing news, Vic.
Yeah. I mean, it's great to see the FDA taking a position and assessing the tool and coming up with it's very positive. And the screening is now approved. They have de novo clearance. So it's not an 510K. This is de novo, which is harder. And I think the benefit is it still is in the mammogram workflow, but they have an AI tool trained on, I forget what it was, a lot, maybe
images.
8 million, 7, I don't know, a bunch of images. And so they can spot anomalies before the human eye can see that there's a cancer lump they're forming. And so the AI is better at screening, and the FDA looked at the evidence and cleared it, which is wonderful. All we want is the FDA to review the data and make a decision when it is better for the patients. And it's great to see them doing that.
Just to give a little bit more detail there, the AI model behind Clarity Breast was trained on millions of images and validated across more than 77,000 mammograms from 5 geographically distinct screening centers, including hospital-based and freestanding facilities. So pretty well tested, and worthy for FDA clearance. So awesome. And let's get a lot more of these solutions in place. Okay, more diagnostics, please. HIT consultant Quantum Health to acquire Embold Health, strengthening AI-powered healthcare navigation. Embold Health is a Nashville-based company, and Quantum Health is, pretty big firm.
Yeah. So I was excited to see this. We know Matt Burns and the team at Embold. The terms are not disclosed, but good to see them merge. Yeah,
it's a merger. So that's good news. All right, so this is a story that was a big story this week in the world of AI. Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei came out and basically said AI is going to take away a lot of jobs. I saw stuff floating around on X talking about 20%, unemployment levels, and the related despair that will come from that, blah, 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 all sorts of stuff. This is an opinion piece that he wrote in the New York Times. So if you want to, if you want to read it, we're going to have the link in the show notes.
Yeah, it came out today. There's the job threat. And then, Anthropic is focused on transparency and really trying to be the white version, the nicer white hat version of the AI, but they're still building a full AI system.
Yeah.
He also talks about in this piece that they trial how they would shut down an AI system to see how it behaves. And so it was a completely mocked up experiment, but the AI system didn't know it was an experiment. And they fed it a whole bunch of emails. And in the emails, the leader was having an affair and talked to his girlfriend in the emails. And then they told the AI system they were going to shut it down to replace it with a new system. And it tried to use the affair as blackmail to stay alive. And so the experiment was just to see if it would go to that place, and it did. I think they ran it maybe like 20 times, and like 18 of the 20 times it used the blackmail. And so his point here was that we are already in a position where it's going to be very difficult to unplug these things. And it is smart enough to use, what we would call social engineering to its advantage. And unfortunately, a lot of humans have things that can be engineered around. So there's no real solution, but he's just trying to like make everyone aware that yes, it's going to cost jobs, and it also needs to be. We need to be transparent about how we're going to be able to shut these things off.
Yeah, that's. Whew.
Live a clean life.
Yeah. Reddit sues Anthropic, alleges unauthorized use of sites. Well, hold on. Just back to that last point. Except no one
can't. It's hard to.
Yeah. So what's going to happen is like it's actually going to just lower the facade of clean lives. Like everyone's just going to have to like be more okay with the reality of what it means to be a human. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because if that's what's going to be.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to.
You're not going to be able to protect yourself from that. You know what I mean? Reddit sues Anthropic, alleges unauthorized use of sites data. So if you're connecting the dots, this is the same company
same one
that
that's trying to be a white hat. Yeah.
Right. Reddit says that Anthropic has accessed this site more than 100,000 times after saying that it had stopped.
Yeah, that's right. Reddit has very valuable data. If you're going to be the white hat good guy, I think it is important to actually do, when you say you're not going to access a site, you shouldn't access a site. Now, maybe they sued them, so it hasn't gone to trial yet. We'll see what the evidence is, but there's a lot of pressure getting data.
Yep. Snowflake to buy Crunchy data for $250 million. So we were just talking about a transaction of this sort. Databricks bought Neon, which is a database startup. That deal was $1 billion, so it's a smaller deal. Yeah. But both Neon and Crunchy Data have their database based on Postgres. So I think it's just kind of an arms race thing. One deal was done, Snowflake was stuck and had to buy the other one.
Yeah, that's right. Databricks and Snowflake are the two significant players in the data. I think of them as the players that can go across every cloud. Like you could have. If you're a big corporation, you can have data in Amazon, Microsoft, all over the place, and Snowflake and Databricks sort of pull it all together. And yes, they both are buying Postgres capabilities.
Yes. Meta signs a nuclear-powered deal to fuel its AI ambitions. So basically, Meta bought out a nuclear plant in Illinois that's managed by Constellation Energy. Just bought the whole thing out.
They bought the entire. All the power for the next 10 years that Meta now controls and bought. So, I mean, the data and the chips are both bottlenecks. I think maybe the power is not the power and the chips, the two bottlenecks. The power seems to be rising more as the bigger or more important constraint.
It's unbelievable. All right. And then the final story for the show and in our AI rundown is a post from Andrej Karpathy. This was this is a co-founder of
I feel like he was at OpenAI.
OpenAI, right? Yeah. He was the CTO there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And he was also the director of AI at Tesla. That was what I remember him for initially. Okay. And so he has this post here where he is talking about VO3, which is Google's video generating LLM, part of the Gemini suite. And it's incredible. Anyone who hasn't played with it, it's ridiculous.
It's really good. They added audio.
Yeah, it's
it looks very accurate.
It's really, really good. And if you just put VO3 into YouTube, you will see all sorts of videos explaining how you can, I watched one where this guy who has been making commercials forever, is now making his commercials using VO3. This is a professional guy, and it's not just VO3, but he replaced the process of doing the shoots. So like just it was cool to watch, right? Because basically he used VO3 to like generate something like 35 different shots.
Then he's editing it.
Yeah, then he edits them. Yeah. And he only used like 18 of them. You know what I mean? So the uninitiated would be like, oh, this one thing that I generated sucks. But like the professional knows you're always going to take more shots than you're going to actually.
He's used to spending 3 days recording those 30 shots and spending $5 million capturing the video.
That's right.
And now he can do it in 4 hours for whatever, $200. But so the video is really strong, but the point here is that capability now makes it optimizable for advertising, because you can spin up a video for one purpose with one user, or maybe a small group of users, and then iterate. And he's talking about like measuring engagement by following, like, do the pupils dilate or not, which you can see through the phone. And that is hard for me to get my head around, but I think it's right.
Yeah, I mean, this is the kind of stuff that made me so happy I got out of marketing technology, because it's so vapid and it's so soul crushing. When you understand that it's all intended to convert people and manipulate people,
separate you from your money.
Yes, just manipulate you and convert you, and we're now at a level of tech. Before it was more the data that was driving what was served up to you.
Yeah.
Now we're getting into totally different things, because we've compressed what it takes to create the content now.
Yeah.
And so now that we've got that.
When it cost $2 million to create a 30-second ad, you had to be cautious with that.
Yes. It was much more about the targeting.
Yeah.
Now you can throw 1 million of these things out there, because it's not just the cost, but the time to create is nothing.
Yeah, right.
It's all nothing. So now you can use it all, create real-time feedback, and just iterate small iterations of it.
Right. And then you have the prompt, and you know which one scored the best, and then you iterate 30 ones around that one prompt in A/B testing land, and you end up with more and more powerful ways to separate people from money.
Yes.
Like, you just take the advertising and ramp up the effectiveness.
Yes.
And the poor humans are not going to have any chance to resist, or it's going to be very difficult to resist.
It's going to be very, very. I think humans will adjust and adapt and get smarter at it, just like we've gotten smarter with all things spam and all this stuff. Like, we will become better detection machines at this stuff, but not without it taking most of us down.
Yeah.
Not without it taking most of us down.
Yeah.
So it's going to be rough. I came up professionally as a web developer, and then moved into marketing and advertising. And so, and was at Facebook when they went mobile, and when they went feed, and when they turned on ads, right? Like, I was one of those Facebook preferred marketing developers when they turned on ads.
Yeah.
And we've been long gone on this front for a long time, but AI just takes it to a whole nother level, Vic. And look, then you start adding in the glasses.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's so many things that just accelerate this and turn the iterations to even tighter loops.
Yeah.
As they're all going on. And so I don't know.
It's going to be I don't know. It's going to be hard to resist the video advertisements, because they're going to be very compelling.
Yeah, and it's also going to, the advertisements are one thing, but I think, the manipulation of narratives, the propaganda, all the things we've been worried about with young people, right?
Yeah.
It's all going to get to another level of difficulty. It's going to get to another level of difficulty. So anyway, what fascinating and incredible times we live in.
Yeah. Yes.
Fascinating and incredible times we live in. Just want to thank you for helping me to understand it a little bit better on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah. And I don't know what'll come in the next week, but we'll cover it.
All right. Thanks, man.